It is my honor to introduce 9-time Paralympian and Vice Chair of the Board of LA 2028, Candace Cable. She was the first woman to medal in the Summer and Winter Paralympics, Paragames. Candace is also a 6-time winner of the Boston Marathon Women's Wheelchair Division and a winner of the first 4 Los Angeles Marathons. Not only is she an accomplished para-athlete, she is also an amazing advocate and human being. She has been involved with disability rights with the United Nations, working towards improved all-inclusive disability education through social cohesion resources, where she is the CCO, improving disability emergency and disaster planning with Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies, just to mention a few things. I had the pleasure of meeting Candace at the 2015 Roll on Capitol Hill, and I'm so excited for her to share her story with our chapter. Candace, before she starts, if you have any questions, make sure and put it in the chat box, and we will make sure she has time to answer. Candace,
thanks, Jen. Hey, can you hear me? Oh, excellent. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I want to start out. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a Caucasian woman with long brown hair, and I'm wearing a red collared shirt. I have some little silver earrings on and a necklace that's a silver peace sign that was my mother's, and it has also a little square of silver that with a shooting star that says, "If you're determined, you must go forward." And that was a gift from my sister. The background behind me is my apartment and my wall of art. It's super colorful of outdoor images, and I love where I live. I live in downtown Los Angeles, and it's a pretty vibrant place. I wanted to thank you, Jen, for asking me to be a part of this and to share some of my experiences from my sport and my advocacy in my life during your annual Adapted Living and Recreation Expo, as we all go very virtual. I have to say, I really appreciate not having to travel or wear pants, right? She and I had some conversations, and honestly, she's a mentor of mine with the work that she does in advocacy, and I learned so much from so many other people with disabilities that are working in these spaces to, create the space for opportunity for people with disabilities to empower themselves, to be a part of the world however they want to, a world that wasn't really built for any of us. And so we came up with some ideas about my athletics. That you heard I had a Paralympic history, and some advocacy, and a little bit of dash of ableism, and how as an athlete, my internalized ableism was a big part of my success, because with ableism, we have a tendency to say, I'm going to make it through. I'm going to get over this. I'm going to figure it out, and that serves us to a certain point, but it also is a disservice to us in many, many ways. And it's important for me to share that we have to dismantle our own internalized ableisms, and then be able to go out into the world and dismantle that too, because it's a form of discrimination. And I feel like I'm a chronic overthinker, and I'm always looking for ways to create a better experience for myself, but also for my community, disabled people, as well as the world. And so, it's just little stuff, right? And I also wanted to acknowledge the moment that we're living in, because we're living through a time where I feel like the volume on ableism has been turned way up during this global pandemic. We're experiencing trauma globally together, which has never happened before. This is a moment in time where we are all making it up as we go along. And we have a real opportunity to be able to change the paradigm in a direction that supports all of us to be part of the world fully and in whatever way we want to be a part of it. You know, not just what is there for me because there's a ramp and I can get in, or the piece of document is made in plain language. And we have a place in this new paradigm to be a part of, because throughout this pandemic, I personally have felt like people with disabilities are being erased. And it has been very traumatizing on me. And I've had to do my work with that. I wanted to offer a definition of ableism from T.L. Lewis and Dustin Gibson. It's a system that places value on bodies and minds based on societal construct ideas of normalcy, intelligence, excellence, and productivity. These constructed ideas are deeply rooted in anti-Blackness, eugenics, colonialism, and capitalism. This form of systemic oppression leads to people and society determining who has value and worthy based on a person's appearance and or their ability to satisfactorily reproduce, excel, or behave. That's pretty intense, I think. You know, for me, ableism is internalized by everyone, like all of us, whether you have a disability or not. And as we all know, everybody's going to be a part of this club eventually. So it really is, you know, behooves us all to make a world where everybody has the opportunity to participate. And I think some of the ableism that we as disabled people experience is through intergenerational trauma that's been a part of the disability experience throughout centuries. And, you know, it feels like we have a lot of layers to dismantle. And for myself, I know that one of the things I think about is I'm not enough. And so that's that ableism of being so productive, right? So a little bit about me. I grew up in Southern California as a non-disabled person, and I have, you know, Caucasian, so I had white privilege. I loved being in the outdoors. I was not an athletic person before my injury, which was a spinal cord injury at the age of 21 in 1975. And pretty much lost my environmental privilege at that time. You know, having been non-disabled before, I never really thought about any place I couldn't go. And here I was in 1975, all these places that I just couldn't get into, or even couldn't even get off a sidewalk. I mean, in 1975, there weren't curb cuts, so I had to wheel in the street for a good amount of time to find another driveway to get back up on the sidewalk. And as I started to recover from my spinal cord injury, use my wheelchair for mobility, and begin to figure out how to redefine myself, I was going to California State University, Long Beach, and I met people with disabilities at the Disabled Student Services, and they were getting involved in sport. And I hadn't been involved with sport before, but I thought, well, I want to hang out with these people. I want to figure out how they do this, like, how do they deal with it? And I need a community. I wanted to feel part of a world again. And they were defining some sports. One of them was wheelchair racing. And, you know, when I talk about my athletic career that Jen talked about, thank you so much, of 27 years as a Paralympic athlete, I think about the idea that it's a little bit like the 8,000 meter peaks in the world. There's 14 of them. And if you summit one of them, that's a pretty big deal. And if you summit all 14, that's outrageous. And very few people have done that. And I think about my Paralympic career as someone who has summited all the 14,000 meter peaks in Paralympic sport, because I was successful in so many ways. I won 84 marathons. Because wheelchair racing was really one of my premier places that I loved. And I became the first woman, this one I'm really proud of. I mean, I'm proud of the whole thing, but I'm really proud of this, is I became the first woman to medal in both winter and summer Paralympic Games, but I did it in the same year because in 1992, the Olympic and the Paralympic Games and the Winter and Summer Games were held still in the same year. So winter would happen and then summer would happen. And after 92, they changed that. Winter was in 94, summer was 96. So they were 2 years apart now. So that's one of those things as an athlete, no one's ever going to be able to break that, which is kind of cool because most world records and things get destroyed. So wheelchair racing was being invented in the 70s. And with road racing, we wanted to be a part of the running races. And one of the things with the running races was that there was no wheelchair division. And we needed to create a division. So what we did was we formed an organization called the International Wheelchair Road Racers Club. We wrote guidelines for race directors on how to integrate a wheelchair division into their program. And then we traveled all over the country bringing this forward and creating these divisions. And that was the beginning of my advocacy. That was where I really learned about how I could create systemic change in an area that I wanted to be a part of, but I also wanted to make sure that everybody else that was going to wheelchair race could be a part of. And I wanted to create some equity in it. I didn't do it by myself. I did it with other people, but it really gave me a taste of how I could change or flip the script about disability and integration, as well as from a negative stereotype about a really bad thing and your life is over when it happens, to a place where it doesn't matter what happens in your life. You know, if there are opportunities out there, there are options, and opportunities are out there through advocacy. And one of the things that I began to develop throughout was my program called Understanding Disability, which is a part of Social Cohesion Resources. And these programs help dismantle the fear around disability and demystify it for non-disabled people so that they can become allies in our movement towards creating access and inclusion for everyone. And there's a lot of anxiety around disability, and I wanted to be able to try to dismantle that. So as I'm looking at my clock, I see that my time is ticking down, and I want to leave with a couple of ideas around calls to action for yourself. With ableism, it's our own internalized ableism. It's something that we have to intentionally work on. And I know that dismantling it in myself is going to be a never-ending story. It's always going to be popping up. And so I have to intentionally pay attention to when my bias or my internalized ableism pops up and question it without judgment and being gentle on myself. Always knowing that it's okay that I made a mistake. And, you know, I'm not going to get canceled because I made a mistake. I'm going to own my mistake and I'm going to fix it and change it. And that's a critical piece in being able to create advocacy in my own life, but also out in the world, because I have to be able to see it in myself, you know, where I'm making mistakes, and then be able to articulate that out so that I can help other people not make the same mistakes. We live in a democracy, which is a full participation sport, as I feel. And so I want to encourage all of us to think of ways that we can participate as we go forward in this democracy through our advocacy and changing the paradigm that we're living in right now, and being able to create more opportunities for people to feel like they can make an impact and participate. I wanted to close with something that Chadwick Boseman said, and I'm so sad that he passed away. And it's really interesting how deeply it's affecting me. I just feel the loss in so many ways for so many people in having role models and and having the opportunity to see themselves out there and the possibility of being something. So he graduated from Howard University and he made a commencement speech. And so I wanted to read this and to honor him here, because I think it's a part of all of our journeys. So he said, "This day, when you have reached the hilltop and you are deciding on the next jobs, next steps, careers, further education, you would rather find purpose than a job or career. Purpose crosses disciplines. Purpose is an essential element of you. It is the reason you are on the planet at this particular time in history. Your very existence is wrapped up in the things you are here to fulfill. Whatever you choose for a career path, remember, the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you and your purpose. I don't know what your future is, and if you are willing to take the harder way, the more complicated one, the one with more failures at first than successes, the one that has ultimately proven to have more meaning, more victory, more glory, then you will not regret it. Now, this is your time. I love you." Chadwick Boseman. And I really do believe that advocacy is a purpose. And whatever form it takes, you can bring that forward and make a difference in not just your life, but other people's lives. And I just want to say Wakanda forever. Thank you.
I'm a little bit teary myself. Thank you, Candace. Does anybody have any, I guess to keep things moving along, we're to introduce yourself. This is such great, such a great space to share with everybody. I think we're going to jump along. But if anybody has questions or want to get connected with Candace, we can help facilitate that. So I just
and Jen, you can share my email. I'm fine with that, and I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I'm always bouncing around all over the place.
She is a little bit has her feelers everywhere, which is awesome. Thank you for being in this space with us today, Candace. Very, very motivational.
Thank you for having me, really. Everything that you all are doing and that other organizations are doing with United Spinal and others is so critical. It is just so important. And each of us, we're needed. So thank you so much.